Whee! Explosion.
What's up, everyone? This is the first in a series of vlog-style videos I'm calling Strategery, where I talk about tactics and strategy and how I can apply them to Nerf. So the first topic is when to engage, and I'm going to preface this all with these videos are just my own personal views and opinions and things I've thought about. It's something I really enjoy doing and wanted to share it with you guys to see what you thought, whether you want to apply it to your game tactics or disregard it, all up to you. I just want to have some fun talking about something I enjoy. So when to engage. And to me, one of the biggest things is finding a purpose to your engagement. Because if you're just engaging for the fact or just the sake of trying to tag someone, that's fun and there's nothing really wrong with it. But strategically thinking, there can be issues with it. If you're like the only line of defense in a certain area and you're running up into multiple players to try and, do the heroic I'm going to tag 3 people, which happens sometimes but not all the time, oftentimes you're going to end up tagged out and there's going to be a hole in your line that can be exploited. So if you're trying to open up a hole on their side or create a distraction or diversion, something like that, basically have an idea for why you're engaging. Because if there is no reason for it, if you can't find a reason for it rather, then there's a chance that it might be a bad engagement for you, and should you lose it, it will be more detrimental to you than it would be beneficial had you won. So just something to think about as a whole for this conversation topic. Something else is player location and numbers. So if your side has just won an engagement and say maybe 2 or 3 out of their 10 players are walking back to spawn and you manage to get away with no tags, you're at a distinct advantage, and now is a good time to push and try and press that advantage. And whether you're playing Capture the Flag, King of the Hill, try and take possession of a flag or an extra hill. So those are things to consider. Also, if your team is maybe spread out a certain way that's advantageous for you to create a distraction again. Try and draw players from their strong side to where you are to create a slight opening at times, or even a big opening at times for your team to take an advantage of. Just things to be aware is where you see players on their team and your team going, because it does affect the flow of the game. If you are kind of at a standstill before an engagement, which I see happen a lot, people kind of eyeing each other, sizing each other up, seeing whether or not they want to step into range and start firing at each other, take into account your effective range and rate of fire. Because if someone has you outgunned and outranged, out rate of fired, all of that, you might not want to get into that engagement unless you have to. That said, if you outrange someone, regardless of the rate of fire, you can, continue to try and take pot shots and get them out and force them to either back off and maybe give you more space to work with, or to charge you, which is something you can use to your advantage if you know that they're prone to charging or backing off. If they're prone to charging, you can have someone set up to flank them or give you a backup as soon as they come rushing in at you. If you're prone to backing off, you can use that and push more aggressively, knowing that's their general response to being fired at. Going into that is what kind of reaction your opponent will have. Whether or not they're going to have a backup is something to consider as well. With that player location, and you kind of get an idea once you're a few minutes into a game how the team is rotating. If they're kind of letting people just play out with their skirmishes and hope their team just wins their single battles, 1v1 or 2v2, however they play out, or if they're rolling with the combat and trying to push numbers wherever there's foam being fired. So it's something to consider as well, and something you can abuse if they react the same way every time. Again, to create openings by drawing people to you with fire, so the rest of your team can take different routes depending on how open your field is and all that. We play on a field most often for burn games that has a lot of different avenues, so we have a lot more options and things we can utilize, things to think about, which to me makes for a lot of fun games. But a lot of these opinions might not be as valid if you play in an open field with less cover. So take everything I say with a grain of salt, but, you know, think about how it might be adapted. I'd be curious to see, actually, how it might be adapted or how things go on more open fields. Kind of playing into the bigger statement I had earlier, what happens if you're tagged? If you lose your engagement, something that you thought you were going to win for whatever reason, what's the downside? The downside is you were the linchpin of the defense and they break through and get a flag capture, then by no means would I endorse that engagement. But who knows? You know, it's all in the moment decisions, so really you don't know until you do it. But again, consider it. Getting down to some of the last little bits is cover. If both of you have cover, think about, again, going back to that rate of fire and effective ranges. How much ground do you have to cover before you get to your next piece of cover, or before you get in range to break them from their cover? Also, can you get someone to flank them behind their cover by being the distraction? Are you in a narrow alleyway, or are you in an open area? Because if you're in a narrow alleyway, it's going to be tougher for you to get to them. If you're in an open area, you can wrap around wider and come in where the cover isn't as effective. And one last, I don't want to say tiny thing, but maybe not as big as the other things, is keeping track of your opponent's dart count. If they've been firing away while you've been watching since they loaded their last clip or not, you can get a general idea of how many darts they have left. And when they get low, you can engage or initiate, maybe even rush them. Generally, you can dodge a couple darts here or there before it gets too much to be and getting tagged. So if you see them getting low, don't wait for them to start reloading, because if you wait for that, you're not going to be able to get there generally quick enough to take advantage of it. But if you rush them before, when they're low, they don't have many darts to shoot at you, and then on top of that, they have to start and finish their reload, which can really take a lot of time, especially when they're under pressure. Everybody reloads nice and quick when they've got no pressure on them, but if you're charging someone, you'd be surprised how much extra time it can add to their reload. So yeah, I think that's pretty much the main points I wanted to talk about. I want to try and keep this first one short without going too in-depth, because I could talk for hours about these things. But let me know what you guys think. Do you think this video is too short, too long? Would you rather have me just give brief views on topics, or go more in-depth on topics for longer periods and kind of space them out that way? So let me know. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I hope to hear from you guys in the comments. So I'll see you guys next time.